Welcome to another episode of What the Fuck Paranormal Chat with the Naked Bigfoot. I am your humble host, Mike the Naked Bigfoot. And as always, we'll always give people a few minutes, so if anybody wants to join live, they can join live. Oh, thanks, by the way, Chris, for sharing that out. I deeply appreciate you for that so very much. You're awesome for doing that. As always, we'll do a quick recap of events. Just news before we start the show, just again to give people a chance who wish to join live can join in on the, watch it live. Actually, there is nice of you to ask that, Chris, because there has been a yet another violent thunderstorm, and every time we get a thunderstorm lately, as this past few weeks, every time we get a thunderstorm, the power goes out. Like I said, though, we have a whole farm propane powered generator that runs absolutely everything on the farm. When the power goes out, so it kicks in automatically. After the power's been out for exactly 6 minutes, the generator kicks in and gets everything started back up again. Usually when the power goes out, it stays out for a few hours before the local companies come in and get it fixed. Yeah, Chris, it's the laughing thing in the woods seems to attract. I'm not sure if it's causing the thunderstorms or it's attracting the thunderstorms, or that it could be some kind of strange and hey, welcome, Bob Joey. Good to see you, man. We were just shooting the shit like I always do in the first few minutes of every show. Bob Joey, so you didn't miss anything just yet. Just me mentioning about the laughing critter in the woods and the thunderstorms that seem to coincide with its appearance, and always the power going out every fucking time that it happens. So, but it's getting to the point where I'm gonna have to shit or get off the pot, so I'm gonna have to handle whatever it is in the woods eventually, much to the chagrin of my family. They want me to lead a nice quiet life, as I said in the earlier video, and not get too excited or too excitable, because it wears me down in their eyes very quickly. Fuck it. Alrighty, guys, let's start up tonight. Tonight's episode's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll be talking about some really fun metaphysical shit. But before we get into the heart of the matter, there's a few disclaimers that I always make at the beginning of every show. The views and opinions that are expressed tonight and are solely those of Mike the Naked Bigfoot, who is myself, no one else. I am not here to influence, persuade, dissuade, or radically alter your view of the world, or change your religion. My show is meant for both is meant to be both educational and entertainment. You're supposed to have fun when you watch my show, laugh a little bit. It's supposed to inspire discussions. Hopefully, it will inspire people to go out and explore this magical, strange world that we live in. But if you do choose to do that, I wish for you to do it safely and sanely. Don't take any of the bullshit risks that you will see me talk about in earlier episodes and future episodes of this show. Again, safely and sanely. Explore the world safely and sanely. And as you probably can tell by now, I have a frequency of dropping F-bombs here and there throughout my speech. So, as always, if there are any small kids in the room, or that you don't wish to have them exposed to any naughty words or bad language, or sometimes alarming imagery that I will be talking about, because sometimes the things I talk about can be bloody and frightening, downright frightening at times. Please have them leave the room, send them to bed, or get them out of earshot of the conversation, or wear a set of earphones where you can hear me talk, and the kids can't hear any of the language that will slip out of my mouth. Again, I do not do it for shock value. It is part of my vernacular. And it pops out frequently and often, especially when I'm in informal settings like this. Also, we do play a drinking game on my show, on all my shows, as a matter of fact. Unless it's an update show, because update shows are usually not very long. Sometimes they're long, but they're not always long. But we do play a drinking game. Every time you hear me say, that's a story for another time, or that's a story for another day, please take a sip of your adult beverage of choice. If you do not imbibe adult beverages, but wish to play the drinking game tonight, please take a sip or shot of your tea, coffee, juice, or water, or whatever beverage you choose. If you are imbibing adult beverages, do not drink and drive. Do not drink and drive, because by the end of tonight's episode, there's a really, really good chance you're going to be drunk as fuck. I was trying to see if there's any other news or anything of importance that's going on right now. I know I'm a little bit more tired than normal when I'm on the show, so I'm sorry. I'm not at 100%, but I refuse to postpone the show. It's going to be a good show tonight, because we'll be talking about insight. Insight is, hey, Amy, good to see you. Welcome aboard, Amy. I'm happy to see you. Happy, joy. Welcome aboard. You just missed my disclaimers that I always do. So, in other words, you didn't miss much, because the show is just starting. The topic is just beginning to be discussed, as always. Alrighty. We're talking about insight. I'll just start off by giving, for those who, don't know, the Webster's Dictionary definition of the term insight. Insight, in the simplest of terms, is a very deep, intuitive understanding of a person, place, or thing. But what I'm talking about tonight, I hate using the word ability, so I'm going to use the word talent, because I think the word ability makes things sound so fucking hokey. So if you hear me say ability, I'm going to probably catch myself and call myself a bad word and try to avoid it. But in metaphysical terms and in supernatural terms, insight is that definition. It is that intuitive sense, but it goes much, much, much more deeper than that. Insight, in my experience, and we'll talk more about my experiences later and how, I'm not going to say that I'm not that person. I mean, those who know me know that I'm not that person. That you have people go, everybody has psychic talents and has medium talents, and they just have to use them and awaken them. Well, that's just bullshit. Those who don't know my views on that already, please go back and look at some of my previous videos, especially when I'm talking about psychic mediums in general. That particular talent is, notice I avoid the word. I avoided the word I said I was going to use tonight. That particular talent is found within certain bloodlines. It travels in bloodlines and in families. It's bloodlines. Well, insight in the supernatural slash metaphysical sense is the same, is again something that is typically found in, it runs in bloodlines. It's a talent, like I said before. It's a talent that it's hard to describe, and it's very personal to me, so it's hard to talk about too. Because it's rough. It can be really fucking rough when it happens. But here we go. Insight in the paranormal, metaphysical, supernatural sense is similar to psychometry that some mediums have a talent for. Touching an item and being able to figure out the history of that item, or who it belonged to, pick up on any emotional value to that. Insight is very similar to that, except for it's very visceral, it's very raw, and it's hard to break the connection once you do it. Insight works best with the living and not so much the dead. I have a particular talent with the living. When I purposefully use insight, and I'll tell you, how it's in my family. It's been in my family, my mountain family for fucking generations. It distilled itself in me, apparently. It became a really bothersome insight did. It took me forever to realize that's what it was called, too. When you use insight, insight is making an emotional, uh, mental, and spiritual connection with a person or a thing. Could be living, or it can be living, sometimes dead. It could be an inanimate object. It can be a living object. It can be a once living object. And when you make that connection, what you do to make the connection, when you're doing it on purpose, is that you can use a picture of that person. You can have actually that person in the room with you or near you. And it's a line of sight thing. When you see them, you make that connection. Or if you touch them or hold their hand or put your hand on their shoulder or make physical contact in some way. Again, this is if you're doing it on purpose. God, I've never talked about this before, so it's really, really hard. It's hard as hell. I've mentioned it in conversations with people, but I've never explained it. You pick up, you make a connection, you reach out and make a connection when you touch them or see them or see a picture of them, or in some cases, if you visualize them, if you have a mental image of what they look like in your head. I'm having one right now, and I'm trying to push it out so it doesn't distract me tonight. That you set up a two-way understanding in my case, I pick up on, I begin to read people's raw emotional state of being. No, it's not an empathic ability before anybody fucking says the word empathic out at me. It is much more personal than that. Because when you pick up on that emotion, you share that emotion. And when you share that emotion, you see and you feel and you experience whatever it was that caused that person that emotion. So if someone has died, has died, and you're filled with an all-consuming sorrow, a sense of loss, a sense of openness, a sense of being hollow, of a deep well that you just keep staring into and it stares back out at you. When you make that connection, you share that emotion, but you also share that experience. You understand where that emotion's coming from. The insight shows you what happened for them to feel that way. It shows you glimpses of their life. You don't see it through their eyes. You see it while you're, as if you're standing right beside them or sitting right beside them or standing in front of the coffin. And you go through the exact same thing, the same experiences that they went through. Now, when this happens, you can become lost. It takes a lot not to become lost in that moment. Because, in a sense, you're sharing that moment with them. There's no separation between you and the person that you're experience insight with. And the thing is, the person that you're experiencing it with, they know you're experiencing it with them. They go back to that moment. But their memory of that moment now includes me. They may not see me, but they feel that I'm standing there beside them. It's an emotional memory of me that's now part of that memory. That's an emotional shadow of me that's now a part of that memory for all time. And in a sense, you leave a piece of yourself in that memory, in that person when you do that. Um, and they in turn leave a piece of themselves inside of you, inside of me. A piece of it gets stuck inside of you too, gets stuck inside of me. Um, Once you share that moment, the very first time you share it with them, it becomes easier and easier and easier to share insight with that person again. And it can happen over, it doesn't have to happen in the same room, it doesn't have to happen in the same state, it doesn't have to happen in the same country, it doesn't even happen sometimes on the living plane of existence. You can, you think about them and you can find them. And something that I got really good at doing is I'm good at finding people's pain um, and locating them based on their pain. I'm not, it could be a physical pain, it could be an actual physical pain or a physical illness, but usually it's a pain of the spirit, a pain of the soul, um, a moment of doubt that they may have had that lingers. Every time you have a moment of pain, a spiritual pain or spiritual doubt or a soulful doubt or a soulful pain, um, it leaves a mark. Um, that's easy for someone who's using insight to find. Um, I just saw your comment, Papa Joey. It's okay. That's if you purposefully go looking for it. You don't always have control over it. Um, During moments of great emotion, um, happiness, sadness, um, if it's me doing something and making you all laugh or saying something and making all of you laugh, it stirs up a certain bit of energy. And sometimes I connect to that energy by mistake. Um, it's intrusive. I see things. I see your pain. I don't know why the fuck I'm so attracted to people's pain. But my grandmother was. My Uncle Carter was. They were always good. They were always attracted to people's pain. Um, which made him a bundle of laughs at a funeral. My great grandmama, grandma, and um, one of my dad's sisters. Uh, it seemed that we always had a talent for insight to connect through someone's pain. The switchboard that we connected to someone with was always through their pain. Um, but sometimes you don't see, like I said, sometimes when it happens involuntarily, it's usually during a heightened moment, and sometimes, most of the time, a moment of weakness in myself when I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing on a metaphysical level. And I reach out and I tap someone on the shoulder. And then I can't help it. And then it just hits me like I got hit in my between the eyes with a roll of quarters or something. And I start getting flashes of memory and these flashes of insight that show me people, um, that show me the experiences that led to these emotions. And I start seeing the experiences and experiencing the experiences with them and seeing people that around them that I don't know. And I have to pull myself back. It's hard to pull back once you make the connection. It's hard to pull back. I my granny taught me something really neat to do, which some of you know I've done it and you've heard me do it. That I talk my way away from it. As I'm talking, I visualize myself pushing away, um, until I'm far enough away to where I can't see it anymore. It's not easy. It's hard. It's painful sometimes. Um, but like I said, the experience becomes your experience. The memory becomes your memory. The emotion becomes your emotion. Um, what, let's talk about, what I said earlier about bloodlines. If you need me to go into better detail of what's involved in it, like I said, I'm not going to, I don't use the word ability, and I refuse to have anybody use that word around me, to describe it. It's a talent. It's a hereditary talent. Um, I believe it's a hereditary talent. It's not something I developed. It's something that it usually, for me, it took a traumatic event to make my first connection. Um, It was me being with my granny in the same and being in her house when she had one of the people in our community child was stillborn, and she was helping to deliver the the body of the stillborn child, and take it from the mother. And of course, I wasn't allowed in the room when it was going on, but I knew what was going on. My daughter, I believe, does, and my son wouldn't admit to it if he did. I'll have to tell you. Good question, Chris. My son would. Does anybody in my family have it? That's still alive. Um, of course, the baby was stillborn, and it was the mother, um, the young lady who was giving birth to the stillborn child, and my grandmother was the midwife and getting the child out of her. Um, I had never heard such screaming before in my life, and I'd been in the house with many childbirths happening in the birthing room, in the birthing part of the house. I'd been in the house many times, but this was something different, something that touched me differently. Um, and for just, I remember when it happened. It was just for a moment. I closed my eyes. I put my hands over my ears because it was just, I had never heard, a human being make sounds like that before. Sounds of anguish and pain before. I'd heard it in animals, but I'd never heard it coming from a human being before. And um, it got really quiet around me. And I felt like I had I had this overwhelming sense of dread and sadness that was inside of me. And I took my hands off my ears and I opened my eyes. And I realized that I wasn't in the house anymore. I wasn't in my house anymore. I wasn't in my granny's house anymore. I was in that young lady's house. And I was standing beside her. And she had a bottle of turpentine. Um, and I looked at her when she was holding this bottle of turpentine. I was in her bedroom with her. And I kept hearing her voice in my head saying over and over again, he doesn't love me. It was such deep, unwielding sadness. Um, he doesn't love me, he doesn't love me, he doesn't love me. And she took the bottle of turpentine up and she drank about half of it. And when she drank it, I had this white hot flash of pain in my stomach as I was sitting beside her. And I did an audible gasp. And she turned around. Well, she looked past her over her shoulder and looked at me. And she said, "It's over now." And closed my eyes, opened them back up, and I was back in the house again. I knew I hadn't traveled from the house. I knew it all happened. It had to all happen in my head. Or as was explained to by my grandmother later when I told her about it. When she told me about the child being born, dead, was stillborn. And what she suspected the girl had done because she got pregnant um, with a boy who was not going to marry her at all. He told her, he's left. He said, "It's not my baby," so on and so forth. My grandmother told me the story. And that she suspected that the girl was responsible for the death of her own child inside of her womb, from making a stone baby inside of her womb. And that's when I looked at her. I said, well, Granny, if you drink turpentine, will that kill your baby when it's inside your belly? And she looked at me. And she said, yeah, it will. She said, how do you know that? I said, because she drank turpentine to kill her baby. And I told her what I had seen when she was pulling the dead baby out of the girl, out of the mother. I told her what I had seen, and she explained to me that what I had seen, the sight that I had seen, was real. She didn't know which of her children or grandchildren had been passed along to, but she thought I was too young at the time for it to kick in. And she apologized for me being in the house when it happened, and for seeing it. And I still can picture a girl drinking that turpentine and killing that baby inside of her. Well, I experienced the anguish, the pain that she experienced at the time that made her do it. And I watched her do it. Because the baby, well, when you drink turpentine, though, you don't drink enough to kill yourself. You drink enough just to kill the fetus, to kill the unborn child. And she was quite a bit along. She was probably about a month away from giving birth to a healthy child when she chose to do this, because she kept holding out that he would see the error of his ways and come back and continue to love her, and they would be married and have this child together. Well, it didn't work out that way, and she ended up killing the baby. Apparently her parents knew what she did. And after that, I saw the girl, around town. And she looked at me with knowing eyes. She looked at me like, I know you know what I did. You know I know what you know what I did. I saw you. And I gave her the same look right back, that I knew what you did. Eventually, her family moved off the mountain. My grandmother made sure that it leaked out into the community, and they were ostracized quietly for it, to the point where they moved away to try to reset their reputation. Well, that's when it turned on for me. It's helped me when I would go out, and when I was out exploring the world, the supernatural world around me. It came in quite handy, especially when dealing with paranormal critters and spiritual critters that are out there. Being able to experience things that made them what they were. The insight gives you understanding about a person, a fundamental understanding of what they are, and who they are. It helps you get a sense of if they're a good person, or if they're good, or if they're bad. Sometimes I've experienced things that were just so fundamentally evil that I would just beg for somebody to stick hot pokers in my eyes, so thinking that I would never be able to see it again if I just removed my eyes. Those sorts of things. And that would take, when you have experiences like that are so visceral, the insight gives you such a visceral look into it. Again, you don't forget it, and it takes a while for you to compartmentalize it, to fold it up into a neat little ball and file it away someplace in the darkest recesses of your memory, to where it doesn't affect you in your daily life. that's where, that takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. Now, why do I believe it happens in bloodlines, you may ask? Again, it was in my family. It was explained to me by my granny. She talked about her family, the Simses that came over. And when the Sims married into the Bates, into the Coleman bloodlines, when those bloodlines intermingled, that particular talent got passed along. Um, Ola passed it to Daisy, and Daisy passed it to me. Ola Sims. She she was probably the closest thing to a wicked witch I'd ever met was my great grandmother. Very kind to me, but also um, very cold to me as well. And the way that my grandmother explained to me was like great granny Ola, um, always had to keep a tight rein on her emotions. Um, or as my granny Daisy told me, she said her sight has shown her too much. She's experienced too much. It's made her a harder person. Um, and I didn't understand it at the time, but when I look back on it after my own experiences, it made sense how that can shape you and make you into that type of person. Um, to where you would have to you cut all of your emotions off from your family and your friends around you for fear that you may hurt them or they may hurt you inadvertently. It's a shitty way to live. um, Outside of my family and my bloodlines, I have met only one other person who had a talent for insight. It was a minor talent. He was pretty awesome too. His name was his nickname was Raven. Um, we became good friends. I don't know where he is in life now, but we became good friends. Um, his real name was Charles. I won't tell you his last name. I don't use last names. I don't have to. But he always considered himself the reincarnation of John Lennon. Go figure that. He had a very artistic soul, and it was when I was spending time actually at in Virginia along the coast. I don't know if it still exists or not, but there was an artist community in a series of warehouses. It was called the Torpedo Factory because it used to be an old torpedo factory, torpedo warehouse, um, back during World War One and Two, and it was bought out and turned into an artist commune where artists would go and rent out space where they would live and they would practice their art. Sometimes music, sometimes sculpture, sometimes painting, you name it. It was pretty neat. And I spent some time at that commune and I met him. He was a writer, brilliant, absolutely brilliant writer. Um, and for some reason, it felt like we were always communicating from a distance. That we shared conversations from a distance, and it wasn't conversation in words. It was a conversation in emotion between us, and a conversation between memories between us. Um, and we understood that we were both had the same talent. His was not as strong. He said he also would would could seek out pain and emotions like that, but he was drawn more to joy, joyful moments. Um, and that whenever he did see or start to feel someone's pain reaching out to him, he said it looked like something was bruising the air around him. And he realized he was about to experience something very, very negative. And he would put his metaphysical hands in his pockets so he wouldn't have to make contact with it and have to experience it. Um, but he said the memories didn't stay long with him, that they faded very quickly with him. And I told him, I said, fuck, I wish that happened with me. I've got so many other people's experiences and memories and pains in my head. Um, it just won't go away. I have to bury them. I have to explain them away in my conscious mind and my subconscious mind. Um, so I did pose the question: was a blessing, insight? Is it a blessing or a curse? Well, it depends on how you look at it. I've been able to help people, you know, through various traumas that have happened in their life. Um, I've been able to understand people better and to make a connection with them that to help them heal, to help them move on past that point. Because usually when someone has that kind of anguish and that kind of pain, their life stops. Their emotional and spiritual growth stops at that moment. And it's either they can't or they won't move past that pain. Because they think that if they move past that pain, they're dishonoring the memory that evoked it for whatever reason. And when you experience it and you see what they saw, you're able to help them find life again, to see life beyond that point, that there is life will go on past that point. Sometimes it's hard to explain that to people. But when you share those moments with that person and they know that you've shared that moment with them, it's easier for them to let go of that moment and to move on with it. So that's the blessing, is helping people. The curse is never being able to forget it. Never being able to forget what you've seen and what you felt with those people. And sometimes it's really hard to see where your emotions begin and where theirs end. They get so intermingled that you can get lost in them. And their emotions that are now part of yours, you can get lost in them. But that's the trick. That it takes time and a little bit of skill to learn how to separate the two and to understand that sometimes what you're feeling is not the experiences that you're experiencing are not your experiences, that there's somebody else's experiences. And you can't let them define your life and define your moment at that moment. You've got to be able to, again, box them away and separate them from your own emotional state of being. It ain't easy, but it happens. So yeah, it's a blessing and a curse. Again, it's a blessing for you and the person that you're with, that you're working with, and that you're experiencing it with. But it's always your own personal curse, is dealing with the aftermath of the baggage that you're taking on you're taking on someone else's baggage, that it becomes your baggage, and you've got to move on past it yourself. It leaves a lot of scar tissue, and that sucks ass. When I use insight on a spirit, that's a good question, Chris. That's a really damn good question. I meant to talk about that. When you are making that connection to them, um, say a once human spirit, a ghost, for instance, it takes intelligence and an event to create the situation to where a spirit will remain active on our plane of existence. And in general, they're locked in the emotional state that they were in when they died, or ever how they died. The experience, that experience helps them give shape and meaning for their spiritual existence on our plane still. And when you reach out and you sense that, and they sense you too when you reach out to make contact with them. When you make contact with a spirit, you experience death, their death. If they died with regrets and with anger, the memories of what caused that regret, the memories of what caused that anger that follows them into death, you stand with them during those memories. You stand with them during that anguish, during that moment that is now defining them as a spirit and giving their spiritual existence meaning. Insight, you can't use insight to help a spirit, quote unquote, move on or get over itself. A ghost is a once human spirit. A ghost is a fixed moment. They exist in a fixed moment of time, in a fixed moment in their memory. And there's no way to break them out of that at all. So people who say they go on and help spirits move on to the next life or next plane of existence, they're full of shit. Insight has shown me that it's a prison that they exist in. They wouldn't exist if this prison didn't exist, and they created this prison themselves to be able to exist beyond death, to exist in our world as a spirit, as a ghost, and to interact in our world as a ghost. The more intelligent spirits, more powerful spirits, ones that draw more energy from the world around them, they're aware of this, but they're unable to do anything about it. Most of the time they're content with that state of being. Sometimes some of the nastier spirits out there are the ones who are not content with it, but there's no way for them to break out of it. It's a choice they made in their life that now they have to experience in their death. And all the insight in the world will give you understanding, but you will never be able to help them break out of it and to quote unquote move on or disperse. There's no way to do that. None. Now you can convince them to be calm, to be quiet, to go dormant, but they're never gone. They're there. and they can come back anytime they want to. Or if they get enough energy to power them to that makes them want to come back and do something. I hope that answered the question a little bit. Damn. I've been playing the drinking game tonight, and I haven't said the magic phrase at all tonight. That's a story for another day at all. So everybody's pretty fucking sober right about now. Well, guys, I'm going to cut it a little short tonight. I hope you did enjoy my insight on insight, my discussion on insight and the understanding of insight, a blessing or a curse. As always, I appreciate everybody for coming out and watching the lives. And I appreciate everybody who watches the replays. Of course, like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at VoodooMan3. I do follow back. There are, if you're a new viewer, a new subscriber to the show, please go through. I have quite a catalog of videos. Some of them silly, some of them fun, all of them educational. Some of them are downright frightening. So feel free to go back through my videos and see them. Leave comments. I do try to get back to people's comments and and like or comment on their comments. If you have any constructive criticism, please share it. I do appreciate constructive criticism. Again, have a fantastic night. Thanks again for watching. This is What the Fuck Paranormal Chat with the Naked Bigfoot. I am your host, Mike the Naked Bigfoot, wishing you all a fantastic night. And until we meet again.